It's Wednesday, April 28th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, I'm going to say something really lame right now. We talk about MoCCA. Comics that we got at the MoCCA.
You can just cut that second part out. Let's do this.
So this weekend, Scott didn't participate. He's not a karaoke kind of guy. I don't really blame him for it. You have to be a certain kind of person to enjoy karaoke.
Someone who is masochistic and or has quality singing skills.
But, I'm not going to tell the whole story. We had a good time doing some Japanese-style karaoke in Astoria at a place we've never been to before. They had a good selection of English and Japanese music, but some surprising highlights that bear noting. Item the first. Our friend Natalie can sing the Najibuti song surprisingly well.
What song is it?
The one to Ghost in the Shell, Standalone Complex.
Okay.
It was in there, the song in Russian.
Yep.
And I see it in the queue because it shows you at the bottom, like, here are the next few songs. I'm like, Inner Universe? Is that the Ghost in the Shell song? Who's going to sing the Russian song? And she sang it really well.
All right.
Item the second, much more important. We did Springtime for Hitler, an old classic.
Mm-hmm.
And for Hitler in Germany. Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party. So, that is a fun song to do. It is hilarious. Everything about it is great. Unless the CD or whatever it is in the karaoke machine breaks midway through the song.
Uh-huh.
So we're singing it, and suddenly there's no more music. Carl, Uncle Yo keeps singing, so I keep singing. But without the backing music, it's kind of this very scary, mildly offensive song.
It's incredibly offensive with the music. That's the point.
With the music, it's not so offensive because it is obvious to even someone who's never seen the musical what is going on here. But when there is no backing music and you're looking at the karaoke machine and the lyrics are, I'm going to read the lyrics from this portion. The Führer is coming. Heil Hitler. Heil Hitler. Heil Hitler. Springtime for Hitler. And Germany. Heil Hitler.
Yeah.
Of course, we sang the entire song all the way through with no backing music.
Maybe though this will create some sort of meme. We could do is we could take inverse karaoke tracks, right? Lyric tracks from various songs and change just replace the backing music, and then the whole song changes. Sort of like when they do the movie trailers, and it makes it look like a Psycho movie is, a romantic or a feel good or a buddy movie or whatever.
I think the best one of those was Shining.
Yeah, we could, so we could do that for just music straight up.
I think what made it eerie, though, the Heil Hitler part was just, everyone down the hall is looking at our room like, what the fuck? But Uncle Yo can sing pretty damn well. So he's kind of actually singing this thing with no music behind it. And I don't know, it was something that you had to see.
I mean, that's what he practices, being an entertainer.
Yeah.
If you practice anything, you'll get skills at it.
God, what about the harmonica?
You have to practice. Like I said, if you practice anything, you have to practice it, like Street Fighter.
So what do you got for me? I imagine your news is better than my news.
Oh, news. Oh, I was still like in opening bit mode. There's not really any exciting news. I mean, there's some, comic-y, like, foreshadowing of the San Diego Comic-Con, because it's like 2 months out, so the foreshadowing begins. You know how that goes.
That X-Men Misfits is done.
No, whatever. But we went. I'm so tired. I don't know why, but anyway.
We didn't even do a show on Monday.
No, it had nothing to do with that. I just not sleeping. I don't know. Anyway. Last week, we went to this special event in the city at the Center for Book Arts, which I did not know existed, but apparently it is an awesome place. And if you want to learn like book binding or like how to use a letterpress and do typesetting or anything that is, book arts, you can totally go there and pay for classes that are really reasonable. And I'm thinking, I didn't sign up because the class started the next day. And I was like, oh, I can't just start a class tomorrow. That's
Yep, especially because we're going to have, like, if you do that or if we both do something like that, we got to document the whole process because people don't know about this stuff.
No. But, I think what I'm going to do is, eventually right? It's like, I got to slowly build up. And I think starting, the next time they have a semester or a quarter or whatever they have, I'm going to take a class. And then I'm going to try to always be in one class of some sort at some place. Because there is classes for everything in the city. You can take a class at like the museum about digging up archaeologies. You could take a class.
Well, it's funny because
learning any musical instrument you can imagine. You could take a class in like oboe, or you could go and take a...
How about hobo?
You could take a hobo class. I'm sure you can go, work at the shelter and learn all about hobos. And, you could do any kind of class. So why...
You can do anything.
So why would I not, given the opportunity, go and just, I don't need to like go to night school and become like a full-on something. I don't have time or effort for that. But to take a non-graded, non-school class and just one thing at a time, I can build up so many skills. If you consider like each class taking like, a few months, in a year, I can learn 3 skills like way better than most people know them. I mean, how many people even know any letterpress or typesetting at all? Not many.
Of course, so there's a problem here. You realize, so you want to level up all these skills, right?
To level 1, that's right.
But
it'd be like taking level 1 of rogue when you're a wizard, just to, or taking level 1 of fighter when you're, the sorcerer.
You take level 1 of fighter just to get the saving throw.
And just to get all those feats, right? So this is what it is. I'm basically get all these feats.
But the trouble is, look at the Burning Wheel book. You realize that training gives you like nothing compared to putting yourself in mortal danger. If you had a guy who pointed a gun at you and said, "Bind this book or you're dead," you would level up a lot faster.
Well, I think the thing is that, I'm paying money for it. So that is it's like I'm paying for this. It's not like college or someone else is paying for it. Or me paying for it indirectly. There's like a direct paying.
That is,
so
I think that's a big difference. If I had taken cash out of my bank account and given it to RIT, like...
No, you give it to each professor as you come into the class every day like an arcade machine.
Even if you don't show up.
Yeah.
I think I would have gone to a lot more class. I would have felt real bad about skipping.
Yeah, if you skip a class, you show up next time, and he's basically like double cost. You basically pay for the class you missed and a late fee. It's like, I am not missing any...
But it was funny because I was independently thinking about all these classes, and I've narrowed it down. There are 3 different types of classes that I'm choosing between. I don't know if I'll do the book arts. I either want to do Kung Fu, again.
That's a good kind of class.
Or I found parkour classes, like straight up.
A class?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to see, because this weekend Phil's coming out, so we're going to try to do some parkour. I'm going to see if I break my hip or not.
Well, when's he coming out? Weren't we going to do some Burning Wheel on Saturday?
So I'm going to schedule, I'll figure all that out.
All right.
It doesn't seem like everyone is committed to doing it on that day anyway.
I don't know either. We got to figure it out.
Maybe we'll push the Burning Dwarves back and do something else.
We'll see. We got to do something. Let's play Street Fighter.
But the third
It's better than parkour.
Third thing that I'm thinking about, and I found a place that's real cheap, and I wanted to do this in Beacon. The only reason I didn't was that it was a pain in the ass with the train. I want to, for real, just finally take motorcycle lessons.
Yeah, I want to do that too.
Because I imagine, I was talking to Skojo this weekend about the shore and like going down to the shore for a weekend, and I imagine just getting on my motorcycle and going down to the shore on like a Friday after work.
Well, here's what we can do, right? So check this out. If, you said you could just put the motorcycle behind the building for free, right?
1 motorcycle. I don't know about 2. Maybe.
The other thing we could do, right?
We could split a parking space and park both motorcycles at it.
Well, we could also, motorcycles don't really need a parking space. You could put them in like Manhattan mini storage.
Yeah.
Or we could put them in like Jersey storage.
I'll just roll them into my building up the freight elevator.
We basically take the path train, because we're not going to need them to go around in the city. We only need them when we leave, and mostly to go, right?
Yeah, around in the city. I'm actually thinking about getting a Vespa at some point.
So not good.
Why?
Nah.
What's wrong with the Vespa? They're great for going to the grocery.
No, they're not. You can't put any groceries in there.
You can put a lot of groceries in there.
No, and they're mad dorky.
Isn't your whole philosophy don't care what people think about you? It's Geeknights.
Are you gonna get a motorcycle with saddlebags?
I'm probably gonna get either a half cruiser or some sort of crotch rocket.
Crotch rock?
The forward posture motorcycles.
Talk about no groceries.
The motorcycle is not for groceries. The motorcycle is for the shore.
Yeah, I'm going to get...
The Vespa is for groceries.
I'm going to get a perfectly just normal motorcycle.
I was looking at those, the bikes that are the hybrid. They have the electric engine, so they're basically a motorcycle and a bike.
Talking about dorky.
They're cool.
No.
Real cool.
No.
You ask Steve Pomeroy or any of our friends at MIT, they're going to think it's cool.
Yeah, but practicality, not so much.
How unpractical. Imagine you're trying to bike over that stupid Queensboro Bridge, and you just turn on the electric motor on the way up that hill.
Yeah, so now I look like a net, and this Lance Armstrong comes buzzing by me. All right, who looks stupid now? At least if I'm pedaling, it'd be like, all right, you're trying.
Well, fake
you're
pedal.
Gonna be Lance Armstrong one day, but no, if you
Nah. Your lungs are not nearly freakishly large enough.
no, actually, I have a speedometer on my bike now. It's pretty. It's pretty.
Oh shit! So
I'm not sure. Like, do you know, like in the Tour de France, like how fast do they go?
I don't know.
In miles an hour.
On my bike, like when I used to have a speedometer and I biked around a lot in high school, I could easily maintain like 18 or 19 miles an hour.
But that like on flats or whatever? Or?
Yeah, flats. On hills, I could get it up to like 40.
My bike, when I was coming down the Queensboro Bridge, when it got to like 31, like basically pedaling didn't do anything. It was pretty much wind was limiting, and that was it. You like no amount of pedaling. You know, no. If I cranked up to the maximum RPM of pedaling, it would not have accelerated.
See, I would never go that fast on either a bike that wasn't a racing bike or that had a front suspension. Without one of those two, I would not do that.
But you know, basically, it's like like 15 going around the city. But I'm not sure if I have the circumference of the wheel correct. You know,
you need one of those giant wheels, the ones that are like the big old man.
See now, you ready?
Handlebar mustache.
I accidentally made a stupid thought, and then my coworker made the same stupid thought, right? So you put a magnet on a spoke, and then you put the sensor on the fork, and the magnet comes with really close to the sensor, but doesn't touch it, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it knows. And then it counts the revolutions, and you tell it the circumference of the wheel.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all you got to do. So the coworker made the same stupid first thought.
Don't you have to put it on the outside?
No, doesn't it matter like how far, if it's too close to the hub or too close to the rim, won't it be wrong? It's like, no. An RPM is an RPM. If the magnet's going close, if the magnet is farther away, closer to the rim and farther from the hub, it'll be going faster, but it'll still go in a complete circle in the same amount of time as it would if it was right next to the hub. One revolution still takes the same amount of time.
All right,
travels the same amount of distance.
That's a common and expected mistake. So what's number 2?
What do you mean number 2?
I thought you said there were 2 mistakes.
No, I said we both made the same initial mistake.
So 2 mistakes, but between 2 people.
The same mistake.
I
don't know. I remember saying 2 mistakes.
Well, regardless, my oh shit moment a second ago, I have a GPS app that tracks like where I run. So I tried it out rollerblading to see like how fast I go and where I slow down and speed up. And I realized just now that I left it on, so it basically is still tracking my time right over there, right now.
Why did you punch me in the face with the microphone?
Because the boom's kind of in my way.
A little move. Anyway. Right. So the Center for Book Arts. Talk about a tangent. Whoa.
That's great.
So we went to this Center for Book Arts because they have an exhibit there. They have like you can go for classes, but they also have exhibits to sort of, and that's actually a clever move. It's like they have the space in their room they're not using. They can get people to come in to look at cool exhibits, appeal to different groups, and then you come in for the exhibit and then they sell you on their classes, which totally worked. So their exhibit is about Garo, which is the pretty much the original Gekiga manga magazine.
They had a whole set of
They had had every issue of the first decade of Garo from like the early 60s to the early 70s. Every single issue was there.
Apparently they're not that hard to come by.
Yeah, I asked the guy, I was like, where did you get all these? He's like, I went to Japan, I went used bookstores and I bought them. He's like, they're not hard to find and they're not expensive. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, this is fucking as old as Spider-Man, which is really expensive, but it's cheap and easy to get.
And better.
But there were some really amazing comics in there, and it was a fascinating exhibit.
The only complaint I had was that we went to the lecture afterward, and it was good, but it was basically kind of smarmy doctorate guy trying to write a paper interviewing Japanese creator, and I can sum up every question he asked into one concise sentence. Does this represent a penis? Because it looks like it represents a penis. And here are like 10 examples where you drew something that I think looks like a penis.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that when I made it.
He's like, but seriously, look at this. It's a penis.
Yeah, he had, it was so great how he would, pretty much all he did was he showed this lady's art, which was really great. And then he showed like comparisons with like, other Japanese arts,
This one artist that she seemed to like she'd admitted, she liked this artist, and he pulls up that guy's art, and he's like, you really like this artist? Why? And she's like, oh, well, the composition, whatever. And then he's like, okay, I got her to admit that she likes him. And then he proceeds to show all the crazy, perverted, old man, schoolgirl, pseudo-rape penis stuff that the guy had drawn. And he's like, so what about this picture? Did you like? It was kind of awesome.
Yeah. The one picture that I just remember is the one where the girl she drew, and the whole background is white, but the girl's feet are off the bottom of the page, and the background between the girl's legs is all these flowers, and it's bright yellow and everything. And he's like, really? So this is not sexual or referring to menstruation in any way, shape, or form?
And she's like, nope. And just sitting there.
I mean, the Japanese guests at conventions are, we're pretty used to them, always avoiding any hentai or sexual topics, which we'll discuss more in my thing of the day. But, it's funny to see someone actually be like, look, there it is. So it's like if you went to Gabe, from Penny Arcade, and we're like, so, see, you drew this penis here. He'd be like, yep.
Tell me about it.
It's quite a large dong, nice and hairy. Something like that. Anyway.
So I don't want to talk about this at length, but it kind of epitomizes the surprising lack of professionalism. Well, I guess it's not surprising anymore in the American anime industry. So the president and CEO of Bang Zoom,
which is a dubbing company, right?
Yep, they dub a ton of anime, basically said, we're done unless you assholes start buying our anime and not just pirating all of it. And he said straight up, anime is going to die. And he basically seems to blame piracy and fan subs for the fact that their dubs are not making money. And of course, the obvious response to this is, but what about things like Crunchyroll? I mean, you can get most of this anime that kids are watching today completely legitimately. And people do get it completely legitimately and for free because it's online for free.
I basically stopped getting fan. I mean, I would get a fan sub of the show I really wanted, but it's on Crunchyroll. So even though there's some ads there's not enough to be annoying. People don't download TV shows; they go to Hulu because it's easier.
Yeah, and yet not
because they care about legality, but because it's easier to just go click and it starts playing as opposed to find a torrent, download it, get the codecs, then play it.
But he basically says you assholes have to buy DVDs, which one, I take issue with that statement. I'll get to why in a second, but when confronted with the fact that you can get a lot of this stuff for free legally, he basically says, well, so far there's no successful way to monetize online entertainment. So
if it's not successful,
useless.
Why is anyone doing it?
But his argument that you should buy DVDs fails too, because I note that I only buy DVDs of anime when they're one, box sets of an entire show, and
for
two,
wicked cheap,
less than $20.
Yeah, wicked cheap.
I think $25 is the most I would spend, and that is for a standalone complex level of show.
Yep.
Maybe Bakano or Durara, I would pay $25 for the box set.
The whole thing.
It would have to be the entire thing, all in thin packs.
Yep. Anyway, or in one of the bricks. The bricks are because it's they're all in one package. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I would go and discuss this same topic yet again, but didn't we do an episode this is not a charity?
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah, so there we go. It's done. I don't want to waste my breath anymore on these kind of people. The only thing I guess I gotta add is hey, if never blame the customer. It's all if a business is having a problem, it's the business person's fault. And you know what? If an industry is dying. An industry is dying. Why are you in a shitty business? Just go out of business. There's not, I mean, just because a business exists doesn't mean it has some right or need to stay in business.
Well, I think there's a secondary thing here that's kind of...
Go out of business if there's no money to be made.
So notice how it's the dubbing company that's having trouble. I think part of the problem is that anime had a boom where a lot of semi-mainstream people, a lot of people were just kind of watching anime on TV for a while. And then that kind of faded. The only time there's a market for dubs is when non-anime fans watch anime.
On TV.
Anime fans, people who are into anime...
Subtitles.
They're going to watch subtitles, and they're going to go for fan subs if they can't get it any other way. So
yeah, look, Crunchyroll's all subtitles.
I
right?
think the dubbing
so that's
industry,
not making any money for the dub guy.
I think the dub guy is done anyway because what he needs to do is
A lot of anime companies, when they do release DVDs, are doing sub only.
because DVDs are not going to sell to anyone who wants a dub.
Nope.
The only people you can ever sell a dub to are TV networks, and they're not selling it to TV networks the right way. So that's
And the
end of
other
that.
thing, right, is that look, all the dubs that were actually on TV, like late night Cartoon Network, were from one dubbing place. I don't know if that place that the same people that dubbed like Ghost in the Shell and Cowboy Bebop, that one place that made all the quality dubs and everyone else made the shitty ones that didn't get on TV. So,
Oh, they got on TV.
is Bang Zoom that the people who did the really good dubs, or are those the people who did some shitty dubs?
I don't even know.
I don't even know either.
I have no idea.
So, like, if those are the Ghost in the Shell Cowboy Bebop dubbing crew, then that's really in the shitter. But if they're not that crew, then your dubs suck anyway. So, you deserve to be out of business.
So, things of the day. I would hope you've seen this, but if you haven't, I figure it's worth pointing out. Basically, in a special episode, a special volume of New Type in Japan, there's no more New Type USA,
Yeah.
but they had this whole thing about the otaku room in 1985, 1995, and today. And it kind of has a depiction of like what a typical otaku's room looks like in these three eras.
And it's stereotypical yet accurate.
Very accurate, I would say. Like no one's room looked exactly like this, I would say. But the spirit of what everyone was like, I think, very much mirrors the way these fictional rooms look. It is just very interesting to note how the 1985 room looks pretty happening and pretty relatively normal and cool. And the 1995 room looks mostly the same, just with better technology. 2010 room, half-naked girls, moe crap, pillows with naked girls on them. It tells the tale, these pictures, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so my thing of the day, I think goes right along with that, sort of, right? Basically, what this dude did is he has some pixel art photoshopping skills, right? He's talented. So he took all these old screenshots from Famicom games
And did something to them.
and he basically photoshopped any girls
And some guys.
and he basically erased shirts and added boobs. Very, like, you would think that these were porn games because he did such a good job. Even animated some of them scarily.
Now, Scott showed this to me, and I thought it was just a collection of boobs from NES games. Because they're so good, I couldn't tell until I found a game that I recognized, and I was like, I don't remember the Ninja Turtles gang raping April at the end of that game.
Yeah. The thing about this, I think it makes a really good contrast for like some of the moe stuff. Because while this is sort of, like it is kind of perverted, but it's perverted in a sort of lol way. And also, it took some artistic pixel art editing skills here. But it's a pretty good contrast to like the Chubra, right? Where it's like, okay, in Chubra, you never actually see any nakedness. It's like they're so perverted and twisted and pedophilic, but they never actually show anything. Versus this, where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? We're not pedophiles. We're just going to show you, actual boobs. There we go. Okay.
It's like Daryl Surratt always says, the most perverted and crazy people are that way because they can't see the pink. Just let them see it once or twice and they'll calm down.
Well, I think what it is, right, is that when you have this person, and I've started to, maybe this is true or not, right? Someone is into something that is so sick, dude, right? Like pedophilia or something. Like, whoa, that's not
Booga-chan.
Yeah, like it's not cool to be into that, right? But they're into it. So you can't actually give it to them. Like, you can't actually give them bestiality, right? Or whatever.
I would argue that the internet does.
It does, but I'm saying, right, if you don't, if you're someone making legitimate stuff and you want to sell it to pedophiles, you can't just sell them child porn. It doesn't work, right? So what do? Well, we'll make child porn, but we'll unporn it until it's no longer porn. Therefore,
So it's just the plot. It's the phantom edit of what is basically child porn.
right. So it's like, well, now we can sell this really sick thing by covering up this and covering up that.
Well, the thing is, what's so...
But where this is like, oh, well, we're not that sick. We're just regular old people who like boobs and whatever. So we're just going to show you some sex that's totally normal because we're not sick pedophiles.
What's interesting...
So they just do.
is the change between.
And it's like that is actually better. Just being like, hey, here's some normal sex right out in the open. Check it out. I think that's a lot better than his pedophilia that we covered up so that we don't get arrested.
Well, back in the day, I remember before I knew about this whole MoCCA thing, and I had not even heard the term yet. And the first time I saw the term, I thought, Mo? Three Stooges?
Yeah, right?
Someone already made a t-shirt like that, so I can't. That's not an original joke. But basically, I remember watching Binchotan. We all watched it together. And it was really, 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 really MoCCA. But we didn't really know about this whole MoCCA thing. And I remember watching it and thinking, that was kind of mindless and really, really, really cute. And I didn't like cast any sinister aspersions on it whatsoever. At face value, it is just cute. And then I learned about the way people, like other people, would kind of take that anime and the way they would perceive it. And suddenly watching it again, it felt really, really dirty. And then I went back and watched Bottle Fairies, and it felt really, really dirty. And my whole perception of all that stuff changed because I learned how different people were kind of taking it and what the actual intended audience was. But then, with things like Chubra, even if you had no idea about MoCCA, 5 minutes of that shit and you know exactly what is going on.
Yeah, it's not like a secret.
It doesn't even try.
Nope.
So, before we forget, the meta moment.
Oh, we remembered it.
For all of you asking, we didn't put up our Anime Boston coverage yet. It's just not a high priority, to be honest.
We have Anime Boston coverage?
We did an entire hour-long show about Anime Boston. I just haven't put it up yet. Mainly, so you all know, because there's not that much to say. We've been going to anime cons every year, many of them, since 2002. And very little notable happens now in current anime cons versus one from 4 years ago.
Yeah, there's no particular exciting things to report in ways of news. We did the same panels. The convention happened. It was a convention. That's it.
The only things to note, very briefly, there's a sudden rise in high school anime clubs, and I think there's going to be a huge anime boom in about 4 years.
Uh-huh. As soon as all those high school kids get some money,
yeah.
You don't think they're gonna stop liking anime? Because basically,
I think they're gonna keep liking it because
I think there's a lot of people you look at some people they were in high school and they were totally into mangas and whatever and they were reading them back in the Tokyo Pop days.
But that was during the day when it was shoved down their throats by mass media.
But then they got to college and they stopped caring about it. They weren't lifelong fans. They were just temporary fans.
But look, we've gone back to kind of the niche market where the people who are into anime now aren't the people who saw some on TV and kind of got into it for a while or had their friends getting into it. They're into it because it's just on the internet and it's just next to all the other free entertainment that they watch. Mm. So they watch an episode of something and they get into it. But because it's not accessible in the mainstream push down your throat way, it's accessible in the YouTube way. I think these people are going to just keep watching it in the YouTube way forever. But the reason I think there's going to be a boom is that there's this boom of people joining clubs.
Maybe.
And also, high school anime clubs were impossible 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're everywhere.
Anyway.
I guess the only other thing about Anime Boston is the whole second half of that show is us complaining about the lack of professionalism.
Yeah. What other meta moments? The book club book is still Carl Sagan's Cosmos. We still have to read it. Rim.
I'm most of the way through it, but I'm not. If I wait and give you my copy when I'm done,
because unlike you, I can read a book in a handful of days. Not how long you haven't finished it since we announced it, which was over a month ago, probably 2 months ago.
Because I'm not in any rush. You can buy your own goddamn books.
You want to do this episode? We should have been doing it last Thursday. The episode.
Yeah,
but you didn't read it, huh? You never read anything on time.
You didn't read it though either.
It's because you're taking too long.
But you realize if you buy it, I'll have it done long before you finish it.
No, if I buy it, I'll have it read in 3 days and you still won't be done.
Well, let's see. You better buy it first.
Anyway.
Plus, I've read it before.
So then why are you reading it again?
Because I like it.
Just give it to me so I can read it. We can do the show.
No, I'm reading it again. I'm refreshing my memory, so it's fresh.
Yeah, you're refreshing it very slowly, but you can't even probably get to remember what was in the first chapter because it was 3 months ago that you read it because you're going so slow.
So, you gonna buy the book?
No. Why should I read it if we have a copy?
Well, what you mean? Why should you buy it?
Why should I buy it? Anyway, what other metas are there? We missed a show on Monday.
Yep, I had a fancy work thing that I really had to go to.
Had some work stuff, and
by the way, work stuff was code name for drinking with all my coworkers.
And I don't think there's any more metas. That's the end of the metas. Why do you making noises?
You've been humming a lot. I don't know.
All right. No more meta.
So, the MoCCA comics.
Right. We talked about the convention itself last Wednesday show.
Yep, but we didn't talk about individual comics. At least we tried to
We
avoid
put in
it.
the interviews with the creators, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
At least most of them. I kind of just threw it up. My tradition for the MoCCA show is to interview a whole bunch of people and then just string them all together.
Yep. Anyway, I haven't read most of the ones that I bought, pretty much because I was planning to read them today when we decided to do a show on it today. But I was going to go to the DMV today. I thought I was going to have to take a day off.
Fascinating.
Because the DMV line takes forever. So I thought I would need a whole personal day to go to the DMV.
Fascinating and an unknown fact.
Yep, but I went to the special License Express DMV, which I thought I couldn't go to originally because I thought it was license renewal only, but apparently is license renewal and plate surrender, which is the two things I needed to do. The License Express DMV takes like 15 minutes. There's no line. It's amazing.
All right.
So 34th Street License Express if you only need to renew your license. That's a note for everybody in the city.
So, without further ado,
But as a result, I was not able to sit home and read comics today. I went to work.
That's fine. We've got a nice collection of the very short or very small or art book kind of things we got at the MoCCA. And I want to start right away with the one that you won't find on the internet. At least, it is not easy to search for. It's called Crazy Lady.
I don't think there's anything about it on the internet because it was one of those 50-cent ones from the Mr.
But even if you look for
table.
it, so I Google for Crazy Lady, you find videos of Crazy Ladies.
Duh.
Crazy Lady in quotes, comic book, New York City, MoCCA, still turns up primarily an episode of Geeknights for some reason, and videos of crazy ladies yelling on the subway.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was from the 50-cent Mr. T table, so it's not...
They were more than 50 cents unless you put the money in Mr. T.
Yeah. The point is that, this wasn't exactly a table that was full of, relatively high-profile stuff that people cared a lot about. It was like, it was like a collective of people just going like, yeah, here's a bunch of stuff. 50 cents, all right, woo! So they did, they were not all of them were like students with websites and portfolios and that sort of thing,
Yeah, it's sad. I won't read it online. I don't want to give him spam or anything. But the only way we have to track this guy down is that he put his actual email address in the comic.
Which is at Juno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Juno was still around.
Me either. But I guess if you had one that, it's still
But
runs,
the main reason I want to bring this one up is that it's a testament to the reason you want to go to the MoCCA. I mean, a lot of comics you can just buy on Amazon, but there's no way you would have known about this unless you went to the MoCCA and bought it.
There's pretty much no way to get it, period. Ever. It's like it was the only place, you wouldn't even known it existed or gotten it in any way, shape, or form unless you had been there.
So Crazy Lady by Chris Brown is a pretty much straight up, just factual, nonfiction story of one of those crazy ladies in New York City. And many of you might not live in cities, but basically there are certain kinds of crazy people who hang out in certain places. And if you're in those areas on a regular basis, you will notice them. And you will notice their habits.
Yeah,
and,
like
their haunts.
if you work in, say, a bodega, right? Then you would notice, someone who's a crazy lady who sits out, who is around your geographic area. They would come around a lot, buy a lottery ticket. Maybe you just see them walk back and forth all day while you're looking out the window. You notice these sorts of things. We're in like an office building and we're in apartments that are up off the street. So we don't really notice, like specific crazy people that are in a specific area because we're not like sitting there watching them all day. And if we look out from our balconies, we don't really see crazy people areas. But we do notice, we pass by multiple different crazy people as we walk around the street. So, but like, for example, when I walk to work, I would notice specific crazy people in their specific spots, that they would always be in the same spot every day when I walk to work. Like the crazy guy who's on the street with all the Jewish jewelry stores. There's that one guy who was over there. I noticed him.
Uh-huh. The only lady I have, and she's actually gone this year, I don't know where she went, was the woman who would stand in front of Grand Central at like 5:45, 6, 7, 8 in the morning, just yelling at Grand Central.
Really?
She was really mad at it.
Wow. But yeah, this is, this story really gave me sort of that, it's obviously not Will Eisner quality in art or in any, writing or anything, but the kind of story it is that Will Eisner kind of human story where he tells a story about humanity that just feels Like it's for real. This is people living. Oh shit.
Well, at least I know for a fact that it's real because
humanity.
There are huge manatees. There are people exactly like this, and we see them on a regular basis. But I really like this, and I'd recommend if you can find it somewhere that you read it.
Yeah, good luck.
So I guess I'll move right along because I have a pile of comics in front of me, unless Scott has something.
I don't know. Do you want to talk about the spider one?
I think we should.
It's not about spiders at all.
It's about dentists.
It's about dentists and dragons and...
It is basically of everything I got at the MoCCA, it's my favorite thing.
Really?
Yeah, I really liked it.
I think it's just weird. I mean, you basically have these dragons, but the dragons are...
Well, they're not. They're sugar dragons.
Well, no, they're sugar spiders. The book basically uses all these wrong names for things. Like there's some wolves, and it's like, oh no, dentists. And then when the wolves finally get close, they have like dentist coats and floss.
But that was it was so cool at the end with the whole, making the dentist uniform and then they don't recognize the sugar spider.
Yeah, but I mean, it's basically just sort of like an Adam and Eve story, The wolf eats the apple and then it says, oh, now we can see that you're a sugar spider. Oh, but we can also see that you have no teeth.
See,
there's no reason to chase you and, help you out.
I didn't quite take it with the Adam and Eve story. I took it more as that some sort of like a case or something that is no longer necessary in a world. I mean, the real answer is that it was the brainchild of a comic artist doing the 24-hour comic and thinking about dentists.
Oh, I didn't read the thing in the back. Yeah.
Oh, there's a whole
that
story
probably
in the
would have
back.
helped. Yeah. The thing is, I think one thing that was interesting was just how they they draw a dragon, but throughout the whole book, they keep saying spider. They never say dragon. And they call the dragons like sugar spiders. So it's like, I think that could be an interesting mechanic if you just set up a world where you just fuck up the names of things, but stay consistent. And, it's sort of like, I think there's some interesting literary things you can do with that.
I guess it's just this was unique and it tied itself together really, really well. And also the dragons had really good facial expressions.
Yeah, some of and I like the colors are nice. The way it's like watercolorish.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly.
The color was actually added after the fact. That wasn't done in the 24-hour span.
Ah, okay.
But all the rest of it was.
Mm-hmm.
But Catan the Spider by I.R. Rothwell.
That was at this table that had all kinds of awesome stuff like Bored Angel.
Bored Angel is literally just a bored angel.
Yeah, they also had some other... I'm pretty sure this was also... I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this is the table that had like these different things that let you build your own story by like spinning stuff around. They had the book that like you could turn sections of the book, but no matter what combination you came up with, the whole page always made sense. That was pretty cool.
Partly, too, this was just very creative and out there and different, but in a good way. I expect Aya to do much greater comics as time goes on.
Yeah, that's someone to look for in the future years.
Yeah, I'll make my prediction now.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up a couple of art books, and Tiny Kitten Teeth is something I always forget about, and then I see the art and I remember, like, oh yeah, that art.
Oh yeah, that art. The thing that looks like totally kitschy's 50s, 60s stuff.
Yeah, but I really, really, really like it. So I got the art book. Becky Dreistedt.
Yeah, it's a webcomic that people read. Didn't she do like a Penny Arcade once?
I believe she did, one of the lookouts.
Oh yeah, was that her? Okay.
But I don't know, I really like this style, and it was a cool art book. It's also something that I haven't seen anywhere but something like the MoCCA.
Yeah, I like it because it looks like little golden books. At least some of them did.
Yeah.
And I like the little golden books.
The comic is surreal.
Yeah.
It is way out
I mean, like,
there.
what is up? This is like a squirrel milkman bringing some milk to a tree stump where there's some sort of thing that lives there that's got a mushroom mailbox. And at the bottom it says, "Sorry I'm late, I had the wrong stump." Okay. Alrighty then. But the art is like, whoa, you made that kind of art for that comic? That's crazy. I'd like to see like how she does it too. Like how do you draw like that?
Well, I don't know. The characters in the comic, like kind of the main plot thread, really remind me of the atmosphere in Cavalier and Clay when they're in the arty part at the beginning of the book, like when they're just getting into New York. Like it's like those kinds of people. But anyway, I thought it was neat. The other kind of the exact opposite, but also cool, was the Shapes art book. Shapes, the New Brethren.
Oh yeah, so we're heading in the MoCCA, and there's these guys who are just real excited and energetic, right? And
excitable dudes.
They seem like our kind of people, and apparently, what their story was that when they were in high school or whatever, I think it was high school, one dude who had relatively few art skills, right, would draw a shape, just outline a solid shape, and just, all right, and the other guy would then take that shape and fill it in with high quality arts of some sort of, like he would invent a character based on that shape, inside the shape, around the shape, right? And then the first guy who drew the original shape would take it back, and then he would name the character that was created. And they did this a whole bunch of times, and they did it so many times that they actually made like a friggin' book out of it, and they actually saved all these shapes. They didn't lose any of them. So it was totally crazy and awesome. And the characters that they came up with are like totally crazy, awesome characters too. Like here, name some of the guys that are
My
in there.
favorite one is still Slick Chisel, the rifle sniffer.
Oh man, that's pretty great.
And Ramburger, the Chancellor.
Oh, Chancellor. That's like from a German board game.
Yep. Of
Dude.
course, Queen Nadia of Pollen Nation.
Oh, snap. So, yeah, if you go, I don't know if these guys have a website or anything, but just like looking at all these faces, it's like you can just keep looking at them and it's like, oh, dude, lol. Oh, look at that one. And you look at the original shape and then you look at the face that came out of that shape. And sometimes, like, you look at the shape and you imagine in your brain what character would come from that shape, right? Like you imagine like this area being a beard and that being an ear. And then you'll look at it and like the ear will be an eyeball and the beard will be like the nose and it'll be totally sideways. You're like, whoa, that guy was really creative. He did something totally different instead of the obvious thing with it. Holy crap. Pretty cool. A lot of fun.
Got anything else over there, or should I dip into the rest of my pile?
I got only 2 things left over here because all the comics that I have are at my house and I did not finish reading them all, and I am not at my house right now. So let's see. There's this tiny one, Hush by Mara Sternberg.
Oh, that was the one that I expected was going to be very sad and ended up being funny instead.
Yeah, it was just like on this fancy, sort of, nice glossy-ish paper. Right? Very short. It's a story about this girl. She makes a snowman. She tells the snowman all her secrets.
And then something happens.
And then there's an ending, and it's like 5 pages. And it's just one of those, like, ultra mini comics. It's only got like 3 colors, like black, white, and brownish.
I'd say it's in the same category as Bored Angel.
Yeah, pretty much. It's sort of like, you take one joke, but you just put the joke over a few pages. And you got yourself a cute little comic that you can sell for a couple bucks at the MoCCA. And it's not bad. I'd like to see, like, this same arty style, but actually do a for real comic that's longer and maybe has a plot, as opposed to just one joke. And that, I think that can be pretty interesting. Also, the binding with this one string is pretty good binding with the one string. I like all the different ways people bind, because obviously they did not all take classes in binding at the Center for Book Arts. So some people do like binding in all sorts of different ways, from, just staples to tape to glue to strings to, fancy Japanese
There was,
style,
though, a preponderance
to plastic rings.
of straight up, well-bound, like professionally machine-bound hardcovers. I think there's now a cheap way to do that.
I think there is some way that people have found to get like hardcovers printed, because I saw a lot of like small, like 20 to 30 page hardcover type books around with some pretty nice covers on them. And I wonder who's doing that and who the printer is and how much it costs.
Though I want to get the Center for Book Arts to be at the MoCCA to do a little table or a panel
why
or something.
were they not at the MoCCA? Did we not notice them? What's up with that?
I don't know if they know. I don't
know.
It amazes me how
could the Center for Book Arts not know about the Museum for Comic and Cartoon Arts? It feels like they should almost be the same museum.
So Drawn to You was very cute.
The MoCCA should have classes. I mean, there are places in the city where you can get comic classes and writing and art and drawing and all sorts of stuff. But I think the Comic Experience, I think it might be, is the place you can get comic classes.
Huh.
But it's like, why isn't the MoCCA given I think the combination of classes and museum is a good mix that the Center for Book Arts has. But do the other museums really? I don't think they have so many classes. Can you go to the MoMA and get classes? I don't think so.
It depends on the museum. I mean, the Natural History Museum, or the Science Museum.
Because the museums are always asked for money, right? And I guess the big museums get money from the admissions, right? Because they can sell admissions or they get the suggested donation, and most people do it. But if you're a smaller museum, it's like, well, you can have classes to make the money because you can charge a lot for classes, and you don't need that many people to sign up.
It depends, though, on what you are museeing. I mean, if it's
I think the correct verb is curating.
If it's old Kniggets with swords, You're not. What are you going to do?
Sword
Sword
fighting classes, yes.
That's a great idea.
Smithing classes, duh. I would totally go for some smithing.
Actually, that one listener in the forum was talking about his bladesmithing.
He's pretty awesome with his bladesmithing.
I'm not going to do it because I know I've known people who have done that. But for about an hour, I was thinking, man, I should totally get into that.
Yeah, you're going to get a little forge in the back, the balcony there.
Yeah, I'm sure my neighbors would love that.
Yeah, right? Okay.
So, Drawn to You, Erica Moen and Lucy Nisley is basically two girls talking about the fact that they draw penises in some of their comics. Not really, but...
Really? Is that really literally in there?
No, it's kind of. It's very just meta about these two comic artists talking about themselves and their lives and their relationships. And it's self-indulgent, but in a very entertaining way. And it does end with frauderism and with them drawing themselves on a unicorn shooting Hitler.
Okay, so that's the thing with the MoCCA.
Look at this frauderism right there.
That's frauderism, all right. That's the thing with the MoCCA is like you'll buy some comics and then like some of them will just be like strangely like have some weird stuff you did not expect. Like there was this one I bought called Hobby, and I think it was European or Northern European. I forget exactly.
Well, if you're European, that might be your hobby.
No, but I bought it because it had this totally sweet art style that is totally like retro cool, right? That's the only reason I bought it. It was
retro cool to what era? Like the 50s, the 60s.
I can't
20s?
really. I'd have to show it to you for you to understand. But basically, like I did not expect it to have the contents it had, which is pretty much like frustrated kid never getting it on with anybody story. I was like, really? That's what this is about? Whoa, I thought it would be about like kids playing with messenger toys or something like that. But it totally was not. But yeah, that happens occasionally at the MoCCA.
Which is kind of fun. The fact that, you're so used to seeing a certain art style kind of present to you a certain kind of story. So whenever an art style doesn't present the story you expect, there's this moment of shock and revelation. And it really broadens people's horizons. I mean, remember that one anime, When They Cry? We watched the opening scene. We always used to...
That's a good example.
When we'd watch anime, we'd sit down, like me, Scott, Emily, maybe some other people in the crew.
That's the Higurashi no Nakokoro ni.
Yep.
And then there's the sequels, right? It's like, what the fuck are the sequels about?
But we'd watch the first 10 seconds of a show to see if it was worth watching any more of. And if it was, maybe we'd skip through it. So we start this show, and it's just a guy savagely beating someone to death with a baseball bat. And we're like, wow, what kind of show is this?
That's a good show to make.
Some kind of violent murder mystery? Looks like he just murdered that girl with a baseball bat. And then the opener happens. And it's like the moe-est...
It's not moe, but it's just sort of just the happy, cute, normal,
It's very much like
Excel,
take the Azumanga Daioh opener and make it more Lucky Star looking, like really cute and just not what you did not expect baseball bat murder to be associated with that opener or those character designs.
But it's not pedophile cute. It's like regular anime cute, I don't know.
And then the baseball bat murder.
Yeah, whatever.
So, of course, Diarrhea Diaries 3. I think I already talked about that.
But isn't this the finale?
It is the finale.
Ah, shit. Literally.
So, I read it, but I just have to, again, the parting words of this comic are words to live by. You in your life, take heed. In closing, let me leave you with this. When a hard wind's a-blowing, take heed and realize the storm, she's a-coming.
Okay.
I'm just so glad this guy was able to come to terms with his bowular escapades by sharing them with the masses.
Yeah. I think Diarrhea Diary is like a thing like only we know.
The only other one like that is Prison Funnies.
Yeah, it's true.
I really liked Prison Funnies.
At least it seems like some people know Teen Boat, right? It's like Teen Boat gets around a little bit, but... it doesn't seem like Diarrhea Diaries gets around. It's like, who else is the audience for that besides us? I don't know.
So I think we have two more here.
Okay, we got two more. Wow, this episode kind of short. Anyway, so this one Rim gave to me, and I read it right before we did the show.
I will say straight up, I bought this comic because of the way the giraffe looked on the cover.
I agree that the way the giraffe looks on the cover, it looks like he's the awesomest giraffe in the universe.
And the giraffe is exactly what I expected. He's basically Gowry from Slayers, the giraffe.
Yeah. So what this is, it's Hero's Journey, right? And You got this rabbit on the cover with a stick. He's an anthropomorphized rabbit, and behind him is a smiling anthropomorphized awesome giraffe. And basically, the story is like totally stereotypical fantasy. Like, I'm a normal dude living in the fantasy times. I'm a peasant. Oh shit! An adventure comes out and bites me in the ass. Now I got to go on a quest. I'm going on a quest. It's sort of not Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, because he's meeting all these people on the quest, like the giraffe and the pig. Right.
Yep. A little bit of Slayer's feeling, but just I think that all harkens back to the root, which is stereotypical fantasy.
Well, I mean, Slayer's is Wizard of Oz like too, right? Leading universe going on a quest.
Yep.
People join the party. Join the party.
It's only like Wizard of Oz if her as a party could kick everyone's ass anyway, and she murders everyone she meets.
What's older, Wizard of Oz or Lord of the Rings? Chirp, chirp. Because, like, who invented the join the party, go on the quest story?
I'm pretty sure that existed before both of those.
Yeah, but so who invented it? I mean, the Odyssey was one dude. It wasn't join the party. It was just,
Well, he had his party with him.
Yeah, but it wasn't like the party had, like, quality characters. It was, it was a bunch of,
As
faceless...
an aside, I gotta say this. Odysseus is a jackass. He's cunning.
Right, but
I'll give him that.
Okay, so here's the thing, though, right? Name one other person in his party. There were dudes on the boat because they got off when they hit up the Cyclops.
Yeah.
But who was on the boat with him?
See, I can only name the only other awesome people are all the people back home kicking ass.
Right, so there were no one else on the boat with him had a name, so it wasn't really a join the party situation.
Yeah.
So where was the first quest where people joined the party?
I don't know.
But anyway, this is a generic story. But the giraffe is sort of an awesome character because he's totally swinging.
Not as awesome as King Cosmo.
And he's not awesome as he is on the cover. Like, on the cover, he's way cooler than he is in the book.
I don't know.
But he's still pretty cool in the book.
You forget, I think, when he's dancing in that inn.
No, that's pretty much his shining moment in the sun. But, the art is pretty cool. There's some misspellings. Like, they misspelled throne. So it's like, I am next in line for the throne. Really? So after the next guy is done, you're going to get, thrown like
into
a baseball,
throne.
right? And it's like,
Maybe in Shadowgate.
Right.
See, what I would say is this is, again, one of those things that you'll only ever find at the MoCCA. And there's a certain charm. Like, obviously, this is someone who, like, one of their earlier, like, I'm going to make a comic and I'm going to sell it, and here it is. And it's passable quality. Like, it really is.
The only thing that bothers me about it is that it's part one. It's like, fuck you, part one. Not making me buy part two to find out what happens at the end of this incredibly generic fantasy quest.
But I really do. I honestly do want to know what happens at the end.
I mean, that's all right. I could give you the totally stereotypical story.
One thing it does.
But then I cut you off, and it's like, fuck.
Few fantasy
Is this
things...
going to continue to be stereotypical in every way, shape, and form and have a happy ending? Or maybe not. I don't know.
Very few fantasy things I have read cut to the meat of what the heroes expect. In this, it's the hero meets a dryad and wants to save her. And I've read a lot of other fantasy stories with a similar vibe, but he pretty much straight up just fantasizes about saving her and then totally making out with her.
Duh.
Which is what is on the mind of every hero.
Duh.
But very few fantasy works kind of get right into that. Like, they don't make it obvious to you, yes, he totally just wants to bone the princess. That's why he's doing this.
He isn't doing it just because he wants to bone her. He wants to save her and bone her. He would be, if he saved her and didn't bone her, he would be happier than if he failed to bone and failed to
save. Well, if
he
boned her and didn't save her, he'd be the bad guy.
Right, exactly. He definitely does not want to do that either, I don't think, because then she would be dead and it would be necrophilia. But it would be necrodendrophilia because she's a dryad. But she was originally like a water nymph mermaid, so would it be necrophilia?
So, the last comic I would like to talk about, Scott didn't read this, I don't believe.
I wonder if anyone else in the entire history of the universe has said aquadendronecrophilia.
I gotta Google it.
I will do it right now.
So while you do that, the last comic I have here is Mirror Mind by Tori Woolcott. And there have been a lot of these comics lately, and I think they're a good thing. And this one's really well done, a very sparse, like, thick, hard lines, black and white style. And it's the story of a girl who has dyslexia and kind of what that's like. And apparently it portrays it so well, and reading it was very enjoyable. I liked it. It's worth reading. That a lot of schools and a lot of counselors are actually using this book to help kids who actually have dyslexia deal with it.
That's pretty cool.
And it kind
Is the book all backwards?
No, but it has a really good section where it shows like why dyslexics specifically, like why they have trouble.
Oh, that's sort of like those things where it's like, this is what it looks like to a colorblind person, to help, normal, non-disabled people see what it's like to be disabled.
I remember when I was a kid. There
Like,
was an
here,
exhibit.
sit in a wheelchair for a day, and we're going to tie your legs to the chair so you can't use them. Now I see how horrible this is.
There was an exhibit of like different disabilities at a science museum in Detroit, and they made a whole city street with an intersection and everything, all indoors, full size. And you'd put on a blindfold and try to navigate it in any capacity with a blind walking stick.
And then they showed you a video of you walking around.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Not easy.
No.
I had some bruises.
My search result is done. Apparently, on Urban Dictionary, there is an entry for dendronecrophiliac, and it says one who performs sexual intercourse with dead trees. But wouldn't
that just a wooden dildo?
But there is nothing. Let's see if they have aquaphiliac, but they don't have aquadendro. All right, so they have aquaphilia is on Wikipedia, which is a form of sexual fetishism which involves people swimming or posing underwater.
That could be cute.
Right? Yeah, totally like hot mermaid chicks. But they have nothing
on a boat.
Nothing about aquadendronecrophilia, which I suppose would be dead trees in the water after they went through the sawmill.
Well, so here's a horrifying image from you for you. I don't know how many of our listeners will get it, but so you want to have sex with horrifying dead trees in the water? I recall in the Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck a specific kind of tree like that.
No shit.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm watching Captain Harlock where he's fighting against the Mazone, the evil plant aliens, right, from outer space. And there's at one point where there is some seaweed Mazone, and those seaweed Mazone totally get killed. So is that another aquadendronecrophilia situation? Because all Mazone are totally hot. At least they look like totally hot ladies, even though they are all plant people.
So they're like
outer
kelpies.
Space. I guess. I don't know.
They're
evil plant people from outer space, at least most of them. And some of them are seaweed, and some of them are trees in the rainforest.
Wait till you finally get a hold of that old second ed D&D monster manual.
I got it already.
Because look up the Kelpie. It is a strangely sexualized monster. And it even hints...
What monsters are not sexualized? I mean, there's like...
You know what isn't? Zombie.
There's like 10 pages of Sexy Beholder in that book. I mean...
I don't know. Zombie Lord at the end. Not super sexy.
I don't know. What's wrong with...
It's to deal with Kelpie. As I recall, it kind of points out the fact that if you wear, like, say, a ring of underwater breathing, it really can't kill you, and you can just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parts what I like about the book is how many monsters. It's like totally friendly, normal dudes.
Flumps and such. So
there's no Flump in there. I couldn't find it.
No, he's in the old one.
Yeah.
But this reminds me, and I think we can end on this, talking about, speaking of having sex with mermaids. So you know what song was straight up? I'm sitting there. I didn't know what song to do in the karaoke. I'm flipping through, and I think... There's no way I'm on a boat's in there. So
and you look for Lonely Island?
I flip to L, and there is, in fact, I'm on a boat and like a boss.
Oh, shit. Lonely Island in the karaoke. Did you do it?
I did it.
All right. Both of them?
I only did I'm on a boat.
Ah.
Because we were running out of time, and we were still recovering from Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler.
There should be a way to just be like, the way those things work is like you can't just end a song and be like, cancel, can you?
You can skip one in the middle, yeah.
Okay. Because
basically you queue them all up like there's a screen.
Yeah, but if you get in a situation where like, it's like, okay, this is not going so well, you should just skip.
Yeah, you gong it basically.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be cool. We should make a karaoke machine that is gong mode where everyone in the room has a gong. And if more than half the room pushes the gong, you just have to sit down.
It has to gong you first.
I would just push it every time.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.